problem in our region. That is particularly because of persistent shame and stigma surrounding HIV, harmful norms surrounding utilization of services, including unfriendly services throughout our region, and this is a persistent problem. However, given the fact that we are also in a COVID pandemic, and the fact that this COVID pandemic has forced us to think on how do we adapt in using digital platforms to intervene, we can see that the digital world is an amazing opportunity for us to advance our issues, and including reducing stigma and empowering communities. Over here, we can see that more and more key populations, including young people, are occupying the digital space. In fact, it has become part of their daily lives, and such an integral part of our daily lives, our digital worlds. And in terms of our sexual health, the digital space is not only a space in which we create, share, and access SRH and HIV knowledge, but also it's a space in which we build communities, we access support. It's a space in which we explore sexual norms. It's a space in which we build identities. It's also a space in which we form and explore intimate relationships. So it is indeed a space in which we do so much, and it's a space in which it's worthwhile to do a lot of interventions in this space to advance well-being, rights, and empowerment of key populations throughout this region. So we are very delighted today to have three wonderful speakers from very diverse backgrounds, I should say. And these speakers would talk about how they think the digital space can be used for generating demand for HIV services, for communicating new advances like U equals U, for enabling and empowering communities, for forming groups, and for exercising rights. So here we have three wonderful speakers. The first speaker is Mon Ravi Lin. Mon Ravi Lin is a dual qualified Thai and American lawyer and a public policy professional with over 10 years of experience in law and policy. She is the head of public policy and philanthropy for Southeast Asia and at Twitter Asia Pacific. So we are very, very delighted to have Mon Ravi Lin to speak with us. The second speaker for today, which is also a kind of amazing speaker, is Purvi Shah, who is a technical advisor for online interventions with FHI 360. And she supports linkages, EPIC, and some bilaterals in Asia and Africa region for planning and implementing online intervention. She is a psychologist and has more than 14 years of experience working in key populations, so amazing breadth of experience. And lastly, and most importantly, I would say we have Achak Gates, who's a dear friend of mine. Achak is a young, openly gay person living with HIV. He is an amazing content creator. I'm his big fan, who advocates HIV and LGBT issues in Indonesia. One of his videos went viral in YouTube, which received more than 3.5 million views. He's also the HIV hero at Com Hero Awards in 2019. So we are very delighted to have these three wonderful speakers with us. So today's panel will begin with a presentation from each speaker, and then we will open for discussion. I urge people viewing this panel to write down their questions as open as possible, and we will try to take them and discuss how this online intervention or this online digital world can be a space in which we can advance well-being and rights of communities. So we will begin with the first speaker, and that's Mon Ravi Lin. I give Mon Ravi Lin about 15 minutes to share her presentation, and then we will move on to the next speaker. I share the stage with Mon Ravi Lin. Thank you.
Can you see my screen? It's good. Okay. Hi, all. Nice to meet everyone virtually, and I hope everyone is safe and well. First of all, I just want to thank you for spending some time with us, and I'm really happy to be here. Just want to thank you, Con Foundation, for arranging for us to speak, and thank you, Sanjeev, for your kind introduction. We want to share with you about our work at Twitter and how can LGBTQI that can use Twitter to feel heard, respected, valued, and seen. Twitter has been working on the work on like equality and human rights. By way of introduction, you already know me. My handle is like at Twitter. I'm a member of public policy team from Twitter in Asia and the Pacific. So I have prepared a wide range of agenda for you, and ranging from like Twitter Open, Twitter for Good, campaigning on Twitter. How can you utilize Twitter to do campaign, to get engagement, and also on the safety and security tools on Twitter. And then we can go on with a Q&A after. Let's start with our Twitter Open. So at Twitter, we are really aspire and we are committed to, we really want to be the most inclusive tech company in the world until we belong, hashtag. And at Twitter, we have a business resource group, or we call like BRG, business resource group. Twitter Open is also one of the business resource group that are working with a member who are LGBTQIA+, as a member, and we want to make sure that they are feel heard, we understand, and strengthening the internal community, and also have a wonderful and impactful partnership with external stakeholder, because we want to make sure that this topic, LGBTQIA, is also the topic that we understand and how can we educate and work together. So I talk a lot about it, and I just want to share with you, it's a 2-minute video with you, that these are the group of Twitter Open members who are Twitter employees. During the Pride 2020, when they were doing the lockdown, they shared an inspiring story. Let's start.
How would I describe being queer in 3 words? Brave, a lot of self-love, and fucking fantastic.
To me, like, being queer is kind of this journey where, you know, like, you figure yourself out. Oh, like, you know, I'm a woman, and I go to the women's room, and kind of like, yes, I'm in line.
I think even being outside, it's hard. You never know what's going to happen just because of who you are, how you look.
We just need the opportunity of giving and receiving love without getting the look that I know, and the look that you know, and the look that we all know that hurts.
Always proud is always standing up for yourself, for your rights, for the people that you love.
It's like walking through the street, holding my partner's hand.
Like a state of mind where you really feel empowered and where you just show yourself as who you are.
I think my resilience as a queer person growing up in an oppressive society is something which I feel very proud of.
Me, always proud looks like
Is this the family?
Pride looks like the person who gets up every single day and puts on their gay superhero cape, and they walk out in the world with no apology, and they just are who they were meant to be. That's pride.
Yeah.
Bi, married, and happy. 100% honesto contigo mismo. Free, free, and free.
The only way of truly living.
I hope you enjoy 2 minutes video. I still love it every time I watch it. And this is internal work on a Twitter like business resource group or called Twitter Open. You can follow Twitter Open on Twitter. And We also work with an industry group. In Australia, we are a member of Intertech Australia, which is professional networking that are working to promote like inclusion and diversity to ensure about tech-based inclusive industry. For example, the program can be mentoring program to support LGBTQIA+ community, foster the sense of belonging, and when during the lockdown. And in Asia and the Pacific, our work on Twitter for good and nonprofits. Twitter, like apart from our philanthropic work, my title as philanthropy, we have a commitment on philanthropic work, and that's a part of our Twitter for good. We have 5 main pillars that we are working on. It is like our force for good to connect it between the company and the community. The 5 main pillars are freedom of expression, internet safety, equality, climate change, and the last but not the least is on crisis response. Equality is one of the pillars, and that we are committed to ensure like everyone can utilize our platform and to feel heard. We work with a lot of NGO. In APAC, in Asia and the Pacific, these are just an example. For example, Metro Manila Pride in Manila, and we also work with Pink Dot in Singapore, and you know of this like Equal Asia Foundation, Youth Voice Count, Yoga Asia, and Upcom Foundation. These are just an example, and how we work with them. We provide the training. For example, during the Pride 2020, we provided training to the NGO to empower them on how to use Twitter effectively and how can they utilize safety and security tools on Twitter. How can they promote the content on Twitter? So these are just an example part that we are working on. We also have Ads for Good, the advertising credit for the NGO to promote their content and advocacy work. So you might have an idea of what is Twitter, but please allow me to share with you what is Twitter. Twitter is what is happening. Twitter is fast. It's the first place where you find information what is going on in the world. And right now, Twitter is public. To make literally anyone can have a voice, to be heard, to show who they are. Twitter is conversational. It is probably the best thing about Twitter because people are connected, people are engaged, and then you can see the discussion and conversation on the platform. In terms of statistics, we have like 1 billion tweets sent every 2 days, and also 82% of Twitter users are active on mobile, 186 million monetizable daily active user, and the majority, 79% of our users are outside of the United States. Asia Pacific is one of the fastest growing market for Twitter, and is to serve Twitter, and people can learn and communicate on Twitter. So I just want to share with you that like Twitter is different. It's more about look at this topic. Why is this important? Why rather than other platforms tend to be more like lifestyle or social, but on Twitter it's different. It's like, look at this topic. Why we are here today? Because we want to promote the equality, LGBTQIA+ on the community, or even HIV. So these are the topic or the interests that people are connected. Time is very important on Twitter as well. The first 48 hours on Twitter, you can see 88% of the story peak within the first 48 hours. And then it's go up and search, and then it go on to other platform. And there was always new thing happening on Twitter. We already talked about what is happening right now, so please allow me to share some of the conversation around COVID-19 related. From the 1st of January until the 5th of August, there were around 2.6 billion conversations. We worked really hard to surface the right information, credible information, and productive conversation and discussion around COVID-19. The peak of the conversation is on 20 24th of March, like with 3.2 million tweets. And I want to share some of the efforts that we have been doing at Twitter, especially in Asia and the Pacific. You can, there are QR code here that you can find out about it. But on the policy front, we update the policy. We challenge over 4.5 million tweets and also remove a lot of accounts that are involved in disinformation. But the other P that I want to highlight is on the product change. Twitter is the first company in the world that do this with a notify prompt, with an intervention on the notification when you search on coronavirus or COVID-19 in the local languages. In APAC, it's 11 languages. You will see the information. Oh, if you want to learn more about this, you can go to credible and reliable information source like authoritative health officials. Amidst the COVID-19 as well, we also roll out like There Is Help for gender-based violence. We partner with local partners in Asia and Pacific as well as UN Women Asia. These are examples of our product changes. In terms of partnership, we provide training with the government NGO expert. And we also provide over $1 million US for apps for good globally. And I think these are examples of like what can we work on towards in the future if we want to partner with an LGBTQI group. So there's a potential of the work here that can be done because this is not new. We have been doing like this search prompt, for example, on the suicide prevention that we already launched. You will find the information here. Sorry, this is all in Thai, but it's like, help is available. And there's a mobile phone that you can contact. Or whether it be about vaccine, you want to learn more about facts about vaccine, you can also follow the Twitter when you search. Okay, so that is our efforts on COVID-19 and related on the safety issues. So now let's go on the campaigning on Twitter. Your voice, your audience, and your visuals are really matter. The first is your profile. Your profile is like your cover letter. Just need to make sure that you have cover photo to show your mission. You also have your profile photo. You have your bio, because this bio, when you search, you will find information. You can even add hashtag. I will talk about hashtag later. You have a website, you have a birthday, you have a pinned tweet. What is the most important when people go into your profile photo? This is the first thing that they can find out. And then this is, I really want to encourage, if you have Twitter account or if you don't, to include your information and personality, because your personality to ensure that you have like authenticity. You can be serious, you can be informative, but then you can include your personality and then you can add a bit of humor. A sense of humor doesn't hurt, just like CIA here, who is of course super serious, but they can be informative as well. Hashtag increase discoverability, and Twitter is the one invented hashtag 13 years ago. It's already 13 years. It started when an employee of Twitter want to invite someone else for coffee, and they use hashtag to grouping like coffee, discussing about this topic, and it becomes so widespread, very popular. And you can see hashtag right now, and on Twitter. It's still very unique and very like only on Twitter. When you can see trending, how can you increase the engagement? There are two ways that I want to share with you. The first one, you can start your own hashtag. And second, you can join one of the associates of what is already trending, what is trending right now in your country, what is trending worldwide. For example, tomorrow is going to be the elimination of violence against women and children, or the Orange Day. That one, we know that it's going to trend. So if you want to use the best use of hashtag is, the maximum is 3. The best use is 2. So the first one is have to be very generic, right? And the second one should be specific. But if you want to add another one, fine 3, but that's the maximum, or else it will look too spammy. So now we come to emoji. This little cute emoji is so powerful. It drives engagement. But how can you use? How many emoji should you use? So you think about like it's like a makeup. You want to beautify your tweet to make it like, oh, get the attention, get the to also still stick to your message, but to beautify it. And how can you make it beautiful? So enjoy the emoji because it really helps to get the engagement, but don't overdo it, right? Okay, so this is a summary of the best simple yet effective keys of how can you use Twitter. The first one is to tweet more. Don't be shy. Send more tweet, like great content, different time of the day, and piggyback on the trending of the hashtag that is already trending. When appropriate and relevant to the cause that you are doing, jump on the trending topic with a meaningful conversation. Third is to have a voice, to be yourself, to define your style, to provide consistent information based on it. And last but not the least, it's very important to drive impact with media. There's a statistic available that like with the media is really get the attention if you want to do advocacy, promote about the cause. So please make sure you utilize all of this, posts, images, like video, GIF, moment, or even more media. So you can find it on Twitter. And now it's come to my last part of presentation is on safety and security. The guy on the right hand here is our CEO, Jack Dorsey. Jack is, and the company as a whole is committed to help increase the collective health, openness, and civility of public conversation, to hold ourselves publicly accountable towards progress. That's why, because we want to ensure that everyone has the best experience on Twitter. Here comes Twitter rules. Twitter rule is like our own law, and we have like millions of rules, and these rules are applied equally and globally. It does not discriminate. And then if you want to find more about it, when you sign on Twitter, you agree to comply with our rules and our terms of service. So I think it's important if you want to learn more about what other content is allowed or not allowed, and what other content that if you think is violate our rules, how can you report it? So we want you to have the best experience, and we are invested in it, and it's our priorities to make sure that you have the best experience and the safest experience on Twitter. But you have the tools here to control your experience on Twitter. How can you control? These are the safety tools. Repeat after me, like mute, block, and report. So you can mute specific wording. You can block and you can report. If you want to find more about it, safety@twitter.com. And to report, you can report on the app or on the web page. The web page is to go to help.twitter.com/form with S, and then you can report. And this is an example of how do you report. So we have like we have an automatic AI, machine learning, and also like human review. So it's a combination of both, and it's like 24/7 that we are working on this. Last but not the least of my presentation, account security, best practice. Make sure you have a strong password that you don't use on other websites. Some people use the same website on every social media. Please don't do that. Login verification. On Twitter, you can have like 2-factor authentication. So ensure you open it and you can link it to another application. You have an option to use it to email and mobile phone. Reset password. So like when you have like something suspicious, you can always reset your password, and don't share password with anyone. You want to use care with the apps. Like you download a lot of apps, look at like, oh, did I allow like data privacy? What are the things that I agree to? And ensure that you update your software that is updated, and be aware when you like photo tagging or disable location setting. So these are the example. of like how can you be safe and secure on Twitter. So I will thank you so much, and I will looking forward to your question at the end of presentation. I will end my presentation here, and we will work beyond like 2020. It's been a tough year, but our work will continue. It never ends, and we want to continue to committed to equality, LGBTQIA+ community. We are dedicated to work on this topic with you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you, Monabi, for this excellent presentation. So what I got from the presentation was very extensive on how Twitter is contributing to the empowerment of LGBTQ communities. Is that one, not only that Twitter ensures that there is equality in the enforcement of rules and has safety nets in place and safety features in place, but also Twitter is working with communities for training on content creation and training on safety, which is excellent because in that sense, communities' voices can be amplified in a more creative and great way. So that was a very fantastic presentation. We'll move on to the next presentation by Purvi Shah, who is the technical advisor for online interventions. Perhaps we'll discuss more of the technicalities of intervening in the digital worlds of young people and key populations. I hand over presentation to Purvi.
Thank you, Sandeep, and it's been really an honor to be speaking at this summit. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the summit, and thank you for showing an interest in our work, which is the Going Online program. I am just going to make this, okay. So I just wanted to confirm, is everybody able to see my slides? Shall I proceed? So I'm just going to start with things. One is that I want to show you our story. I want to show you some highlights that we have from our different countries and also some broad lessons that we've learned while we implemented the Going Online project. There will also be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So please note down your questions and I'll be very happy to answer them. So let me start by telling you our story. So while scaling up the HIV services for key populations about 3 years ago, we began noticing that there are trends and demands from the populations that we were serving that were very forward as compared to what we've been doing in the past through the traditional HIV programs. And so what we noticed was that our existing HIV program beneficiaries started to connect more online as compared to physical hotspots and physical spaces where we used to reach them before. We were reaching an increasingly narrow audience because of the limitations in the physical spaces. And however, when we started online marketing approaches, it helped us really finally reach some of these previously unreached audiences, such as through social media influencers and online ads. Secondly, when we started connecting with the online audiences, it was not enough. I mean, we needed to have a sizable portion of our target audiences that still needed to be reached, and which were hard to reach, and which were the more hidden populations that we were yet to reach and link to services. So, using an online survey in 18 countries, we heard from over 10,000 respondents and found that it was most common for people to prefer accessing HIV information and finding booking information on their own. So, we built upon a very strong foundation of physical outreach on paper and for peers. Now, what you see here in this slide is mainly how we kind of tried to differentiate our services based on the person. Like, we believe that every person has different needs and different requirements, and that every service should be tailored based on their needs and requirements. And so we came up with this diagram where we distributed every potential client on the basis of their characteristics, subpopulation, and then how are we going to reach that population in terms of outreach context. And so we also came up with this outreach context where we had the whole traditional face-to-face outreach versus the virtual outreach, where we had both types, the facilitated virtual outreach as well as the self-guided virtual outreach. The third part that we wanted to focus on, was when we were trying to scale up our online interventions, and there we had COVID-19 come into the picture. This pandemic occurred at a time when going online approaches were already quite scaled up and matured, especially in Asia. And so COVID-related lockdowns and physical distancing actually became very important in the sense that we wanted to be safe. At the same time, we wanted to continue reaching to our population. We wanted to continue linking them to services. And so going up online approaches became very, very important. Going online became the actual vehicle where we could offer clients health care from a distance, or rather virtually. And so some of our programs responded really rapidly, such as in Asia, where we were shifting the entire outreach and case management online. Other countries with less capacity and experience responded well and started outreaching online as well. Since 2017, we actually started reinventing HIV programs in a way that the current audience wants to be reached out to. So we no longer, through the Going Online program, we try to reach out to people online, at the same time also, link them to services online. This map actually shows the extent to which we have expanded our programs. Soon, and the ones in yellow are the ones that have received TA from us and will be joining soon. Now, there are some highlights that I would like to present in terms of some of the examples from the countries that we've supported and countries that have actually initiated and scaled up online outreach. So, when we start online outreach in any of the countries, we initially try to identify who these populations are, where do we find them, and what would be a good way to reach out to them. Because online outreach is a little different than offline outreach. And so one of our exercises that we did as part of learning about the target audience was that we developed a new programmatic method of mapping, which was called the density mapping. We use the dating app Grinder, and so this particular example is relevant only for MSM population. We implemented the density mapping by using the same method an average user would use on a dating app by viewing all the nearby users and then counting the number of the active users at that point of time. And this process collects data on number of online users with a certain radius of equidistant points. So it was like a proper exercise, that systematic exercise that was done to understand where in a city like Mumbai, for example, were the virtual hotspots and where could we actually reach out people to? What would be the most convenient time when people would be most active on dating apps? And this really helped our outreach team to actually go in there and start reaching out to people with services. Now, this section that I'm going to talk about is how we actually reached people and how we connected with people. So as we are all aware that, any kind of online outreach would require some amount of marketing and demand generation. And so this section is going to be focusing on that. So there were three approaches that we actually defined and we use very often under the going online activity. The first one is the social network outreach. Social network outreach is, the usual outreach that we used to do face to face while visiting a physical hotspot. But now here in the online world, we do it virtually. So we make use of social media platforms, dating apps, and messenger apps to actually connect with people with information as well as link them to services. This is an example I have from our program in Thailand. These are the platforms that you see in the table on the right are the most popular platforms that are used in Thailand and which our outreach workers in Thailand use to reach out to people. If you see the figures of case finding on the extreme right in red, you would note that we found a very high case detection among people who were reached online on dating apps as well as social media platforms. In other countries with higher internet connectivity and social media use, the HIV programs can benefit from online ads or influencers. So we tried these kind of activities in Kenya and Botswana with a few creative agencies that we partnered with. And you can see an example here of one of our influencer called Femi1, who supported our campaign called I Am 1 in 3. It was a call to action for everyone to be 1 in 3 Kenyans who knew their HIV status and book an appointment on step 1, which was Kenya's online reservation application, which would link people to services. So here, if you see, I've just tried to show you an example of how large the reach can be from advertisements or influencers, and how much better is the kind of conversion to actually coming for an appointment, to linking to services, to arrival, and then finally case detection. And so this is an example of how we create pages on Facebook. Know Now BW is the Facebook page for the Botswana online application that we have. And this page actually promotes a lot of online services, including information about HIV, information about the website, how they can connect to the website, how simple and easy it is for anyone who wants to access services more anonymously. Everything can be found on these kind of pages that we have for almost every country that does online outreach. Now you must be thinking that, well, we reach a lot of people online, and how do we really track all these people for outreach, or how do we track people that we find online? How do we really bring them offline to access services? So we've answered this by developing an application called the Online Reservation Application, or ORA as we call it for short. Now, ORA has several features that supports outreach, linkage, virtual case management, and collecting and analyzing data for program improvement. I'm just going to browse through a few of the features that we have on ORA. First one that I would like to highlight is that Aura allows us to do a complete client-led risk assessment. So it's like a self-risk assessment that you can do for yourself to identify if you are at risk and whether you need to get tested or not. And it also allows you to book an appointment on your own, at your own convenience, to the clinic of your choice at your own, at your own convenient time and date. You can try this by clicking on the link below, and you will be able to access this service for yourself. The second feature is like a tracked referral. Every client can be tracked once the client books an appointment. So from booking appointment to arriving at a clinic to actually getting tested and what has been the result. There are also features like anonymous referrals. So if somebody lands onto the website and would like to refer a few friends to get tested, that is also possible extremely anonymously, without knowing who actually referred the clients. We also started something for mitigating the COVID impact. So we introduced a pre-appointment support and screening, where it's a short screening tool that we introduced that every client would be required to fill in before they can be allowed to actually book an appointment. This would actually allow us to decongest the facilities where probably a more vulnerable population already exists, and you don't want to increase their chances of getting infected with COVID. And so we wanted every person to be pre-screened before they actually booked an appointment for an HIV related facility in their country. The fourth one is clinic reporting. So this whole system, the Aura system that I just showed you, has a very robust backend, which allows the clinic staff to actually enter into the backend, identify the client, and enter the results of all the clients. This is a completely anonymous system, which is password protected and guarded and secured in terms of data confidentiality. And only a few people have access to this actually, mainly the clinic staff who actually are responsible for entering the data. There are case managers who then follow up with clients to see that they have been offered all sorts of services that are required based on what were their needs initially. SMS blasts actually works like a broadcast message, but this goes out to a particular cohort of people. So if you want to send out an SMS to say all the clients which are registered on our platform who are on ART, you want to probably send them a message, something like U is equals to U. It's very simple. You just type in your message, you select from the drop down menu as saying all ART clients, and that particular message will go out to all the clients that have been initiated on ART. The next feature that I would like to focus on is called the management and the data analysis. So on Aura, we have this whole real-time data monitoring dashboard, which would help you to not only track your progress, but also helps you to understand where your gaps are and what's the kind of improvement that you need to do as a program so that you can reach out to the populations better and have a better conversion in terms of bringing people in for testing. Virtual case management actually has become a very important component in current times of COVID, especially for online populations. So we introduced a lot of features on virtual case management, which actually allowed healthcare providers and case managers to do everything online. So every bit of strategy or activity that we usually do offline, including offering HIV self-testing or say initiating index testing, can now be done online by just clicking a few buttons, and it would be completely confidential and anonymous. Here I have an example from one of our countries, Nepal, where if you see the blue line shows, how many people have been on ART. And then, there was a complete lockdown at one point of time in March, because of which the ART drugs were unavailable for people on ART. And Nepal team actually, tried to keep providing this ART support to PLHIVs so that they could continue their treatment. And so they preponed the appointments for pills pickup and actually provided multi-month dispensation for 2 to 3 months, and started providing this treatment on home delivery and through virtual telehealth consultations with doctors. Link feedback tool also became a very important aspect within the online world, where we wanted to collect direct feedback from the clients. We wanted to know if they were comfortable accessing our services, what was their feedback in terms of the facility access, were they experiencing any stigma or discrimination, would they want to report any kind of intimate partner violence that they were facing as a result. And all of this data would be collected and would be used for improvement of our program. Some of the broad lessons that we learned while implementing this program in 35 countries was that self-care has been, needs to be the most important thing that we would like to sell online. So everybody needs to think about themselves. Virtual interventions allows clients to access and use services themselves with less effort from the health system, which is particularly attractive for some populations who previously avoided HIV services because probably they didn't want to come out in the open and identify themselves as key populations, or felt stigmatized visiting facilities. The second lesson that we learned was that solutions such as Aura, which was the online reservation application, needs to be accessed by communities online, especially in times like these where we have COVID, where you can't really physically go to a place to meet a person, to get any information or supplies or even consultation from a doctor might be difficult in certain situations. And so platforms like QuickRes or Aura would actually help you do everything online virtually through virtual case management, and would sort out such issues as well. Third, and the final lesson that I would like to talk about is that many a times we made the mistake of implementing this approach on the margin of our program without actually the core management team being involved. Now, what happened was that when we wanted to scale up the program, we needed a larger team to be involved because we wanted to integrate the Going Online program into the larger HIV program. And so it's very important to involve stakeholders, to involve the community, as well as involve the larger teams, so that it becomes an integrated structure into the national HIV program. There are some additional resources that are available on our website at fhi360.org/goingonline. You are free to access any of these knowledge management products that we have developed for everybody, which includes a vision that we have created for Going Online, as well as a lot of technical briefs and resources that you could use to actually initiate any kind of implementation with regards to Going Online. I'd be very happy to take any questions after the presentations, and thank you for your time and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Purvi, for the fantastic presentation on the various tools across a cascade in which online interventions can further and facilitate service delivery. What was interesting is that the online space there are many tools which facilitates and actually helps program managers throughout the cascade, not only in the outreach and information and content such side of it, but even in the service delivery. And what was most interesting is in the feedback loop, and for planning and making sure the services and the interventions and programs are always people-centered and getting feedback. So that was a very, very fantastic presentation that showed all the potential opportunities to explore in the digital world. So we had our next presentation before we move on to the question and answers, which is the presentation by, I'm a big fan of this person, Achep Gates, who, as I said earlier, who is a very influential YouTuber and content creator. So we will learn more about what is it to make good content, what does it take to make good content that is really true to your voice, and I give the floor to Achep to explore and share his thoughts with them.
Okay, thank you so much, Sandy, for the chance. And thank you, Alcom, for giving me opportunity to share my experience as a, as a content creator from Indonesia. So, hello everyone. I'm Acep Gates. I'm a content creator from Indonesia who is always sharing about my personal story as a person who lives with HIV and also openly gay in my country, Indonesia. And I'm also grateful that last year I received an award from AdCom as a HIV Hero Award recipient. And also this year, I become one of the influencer for going online FHI 360 linkage Indonesia for making any events in this year, especially one of the event it just like making for live event to celebrate World AIDS Day 2020. So in this opportunity, I'm going to talk about the effectiveness of sharing personal story for online platform to reach young key populations. And yeah, currently I'm using two platforms. The first one is my YouTube channel, namely Acep Gates, and the second one is my Instagram account. So I started my YouTube channel since September 2018, 2 weeks after I was diagnosed HIV positive. So my purpose, disclose my HIV status and also decided to upload my story on YouTube. It was actually just want to document myself and to know the progress of the treatment that I have been taking until now. But surprisingly, the first video that I uploaded, it was really amazing for me because it reached about 3.5 million views, and I think it was really had a big impact for some people. So that's why from since then I have been starting to make the other content, sharing a lot about my life living with HIV. So a lot of story that I've shared on my YouTube channel regarding my life living with HIV, it just like uh, when the first time that I took the test for HIV, when I got stigmatized by like homophobic doctor, because as we know that stigma is not only occurring in uneducated society but also in educated society too. So that's why. And also I also share how the first time that I disclosed my status to my parent. I know it's really hard because most people in Indonesia that I knew still thought that if you are getting HIV, it means you are a bad person, you are a sins, and everybody will be hating you. So that's why it's quite hard for me. I think it's really, but I think it's really important to share my story. But at the time, I was not thinking to educate or to inspire people by sharing my story. It's just like for myself documentations. And beside this, I also share a lot about my story as a openly gay on my YouTube channel, because I know talking about HIV and also LGBTQ issue are quite sensitive. Maybe some people will be saying that the topics that I have been talking about is a quite political, but I think talking about myself as a gay also is really big deal, as I have been talking a lot, such as when I come out to my parent as a guy, and it was really hard and it was really challenging too, because I was born and growing up in one of the most conservative city in Indonesia, and I was born in a very religious family too. So that's why I share a lot about it. I share it to everyone that there are struggle that I have been through while I was coming out to my family about my sexual orientations. And the other side, I have also one program on my YouTube channel. It's called Cerita Netizen, or in English is a people story. So this program, purpose to accommodate my audience story, to accommodate my audience who willing to share their story, because I'm very sure that each of us has a very different and also unique story of their life, especially about LGBT life, sex life, love life, and also people who live with HIV, and and I'm hoping by sharing their story with consent, exactly, um, their story could, like participate in reducing the stigma in the society. Because as I know, why some people are really misunderstanding, because sometimes they only see something just by one side. And I think by sharing this story, hopefully they could see the social issue would very wide by seeing a lot of stories on my YouTube channel. And the last one, I also use my YouTube channel to make a survey, simple survey, such as the survey that I made in 2019. I was asking my audience about their understanding about HIV. So I was asking them about two questions. The first question is about, do you know that HIV is treatable? If you are getting HIV, you can take a treatment and could still, live normally. And the second question is about the campaign of U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. Because as I know that this campaign is still laced in Indonesia, so that's why I think we have to, like talk a lot about U equals U. Because for me, campaigning this campaign would reduce the stigma in the society toward people who live with HIV. So from this survey, I got about 3,000 correspondents, um, and from this correspondence, only 30% who said yes, they know that HIV is treatable, and if they got HIV, they could take a treatment and could be healthy life. And 70% they said no, they don't know. And for the second questions, only 5% who said yes, they know and they understand about U equals U, and 75 no 95% said no, they don't know about U equals U. I think from this my simple survey, I could assume that there are a lot of people who still don't know and still don't understand about U equals U. And also, I always experience the bad things while I was using dating apps. Every time I was using dating apps, most guys will be saying to me like, "Oh my God, why you are still here? You want to transmit your virus because you are HIV positive." And then sometimes I always, giving them information about U equals U, about the HIV transmissions, about my treatment. But sometimes some of them rejected it. So that's why I think why U equals EU campaigns are really important for, especially for people who live with HIV. And the next slide, I also use my Instagram account at Gates. So for the contents that I post on my Instagram is quite different with the content that I post on my YouTube channel, because on my Instagram account I use and I created by myself illustrations to talk about this issue, about love, sex life, LGBTQ issue, and also HIV issue in Indonesia by making these illustrations. So, but before I decided to creating these illustrations, I also made an experiment before. I made some different contents, and then I tried to compare one by one. And from that experiment, I can see that the illustrations content is more engaging, is more easy to understand by my audience, and also a lot of people share my contents, and also they always give the comment on the comment sections. But unfortunately, because talking about this kind of issue is a quite sensitive, maybe no, maybe I mean this is really sensitive in Indonesia. A few moments ago, my Instagram got hacked, so I cannot use my Instagram, and then my Instagram lost. Then from now, I'm trying to make a new one, and now I'm starting from zero again. So yeah. And the next slide. So, what the advantage of using personal story in creating the content, especially in my case? I have 3 points that I want to share to you guys. The first one is personal story is more relatable with the society lives because my content really targeting the young key populations, and I'm a part of the young key populations. And I think every single content that I created and uploaded on my social media, it's relate with my audience, which is mostly just most of them are the young key populations also. And the second one, personal story help me to engage with audience easily. So I think this is really great for me because when we have the same background, coming from the young key population, when we talk about something, we never feel ashamed, we never feel shy, and we never feel worried. So that's why I'm really grateful that a lot of young people who try to reach me out and discuss about this kind of issue, they share about, you know, they worried about their status because they're afraid to go to hospital and so on. And the third one, personal story content help people to not feeling alone. I think this point is one of the most important point because uh, most young people that I knew and they just diagnosed HIV positive, sometimes they got feel stress and feeling alone. And I feel it too when the first time that I was diagnosed HIV. And I found many people who chat me on Instagram and telling their story that they have been living with HIV for 6 years, but they never told anyone about their status because they worry about the stigma and the other things. And then finally they chat me, they text me, and they talk to me, and they said like, oh my god, Acheb, I'm so grateful that there is a like a content like you, and now I'm not feeling alone, and I can be your friend too. So that's why it's really great for me. And the last slide, it's about from social media to another actions. So I think, yeah, I'm doing a lot of things on the social media, but from that, I also, trying to do a simple thing in the other actions. So since I have been running and creating contents on social media, I also got some connections, such as with the professional, such as the doctors, psychologists, activists who concern on LGBT, who focusing on the young key population empowerment, with the HIV issue, with the LGBT issue, and also with the health institutions and the other organizations. So I think this is a really great opportunity for me and also for my audience. And the second one also, yes, I also sometimes making collaboration with the other institutions, such as campaigning the program, the awareness for the young key population to take the HIV test, and the forum, the conference. And the last thing also, to connect my audience who need help with the professional, such as psychologists, medic, activists, and so on. Because I realize here I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medic, I'm not a psychologist. So when some people like ask me about the medic things, I always try to direct them or recommend them to contact the connection that I have. And one thing also that make me always so grateful, before the COVID-19 coming, because I'm taking my HIV treatment in Jakarta, but now I'm living in outside Jakarta. Uh, every month I went to Jakarta, and I always try to inform my audience who want to take HIV test, because there are a lot of young people who are afraid to go to the hospital. So that's why I try to encourage them to to accompany them to go to the hospital to take HIV test. So it's enough for me. This is my presentations, and thank you.
Thank you, Achep. That was simply inspiring presentation by Achep, and what really through Achep's experience, what really we can see from his presentation is the importance of narratives in content, and how content can move, can change norms, can address and dismantle shame, stigma, and provide so much support to communities that are far-reaching. And I think Achep shares that, does that in a very brilliant way. And how much one person can do, the breadth of work and content was just simply inspiring, Achep. Thank you for sharing that presentation with us. That was simply a great three presentations. So we started off with the policy and how a social media company like Twitter can be leveraged to support issues. And then we had a technical presentation on how each level of the cascade, each side of intervention, and how digital technologies can be leveraged for each part of the cascade, and most importantly, to get feedback for program designers and managers. But lastly, also we heard from Achep that content, the type of content, the use of narratives is so crucial to dismantle the shame, stigma, fear surrounding HIV and LGBT issues. So that was a three great, fantastic presentation that really talked and explored the world, the digital worlds, and how we can leverage them to intervene. I open the floor to questions now for the panelists. Can we take three questions first? Do we have the questions? I can't seem to see it in the comment section. I wonder if the audience and in the hotel has questions for the three wonderful panelists. Do we have questions? While we wait, perhaps I can start with the questions I prepared. Amazing and very, very, there's a lot of interlinkages amongst all these three presentations. And the first question I've prepared here is about it's about safety. And how, I know, for instance, in the setting I work in Indonesia, there are very restrictive laws like pornography laws and IT laws that restrict and may be used to criminalize, for instance, consumer groups and content. So I wonder how all of you, in your own capacities, respond and ensure safety in doing these online digital interventions. I start with maybe Purvi. I can't hear. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. So yes, this is a very, very big challenge that we have across the countries. It's not just in Asia, but other countries, other regions like Africa and Caribbean also face similar challenges. And what we have ensured as a program is that We ensure safety on both sides. We ensure safety not just of the client, but we also ensure safety of the healthcare provider or the outreach workers, because many outreach workers are also from the community, and they also need to be safeguarded, or their private life also needs to be private. So we have certain policies in place which helps us train these outreach workers to safeguard their security and policy, um, by not using their personal mobile phones, their personal phone numbers, while they are conducting official work or outreach. And then we also ensure that the picture that goes on to their account is a filtered picture, so that nobody really identifies them and stigmatizes them as working for HIV or being PLHIV. And so these are certain security measures that we have taken. Apart from that, data security also is a major challenge, and especially when we have data on a platform like Aura, people are concerned as to, we are going to leave our phone numbers, we are going to be there's going to be clinic staff entering results on the back end. How safe and secure is our data? And is are people going to just identify me by my phone number? So those are certain things that came to us as a challenge quite early on in our intervention, and we've actually come a long way addressing those challenges. And we've actually tried to make the system as secure as possible, with password protections, encryptions, using security certificates online, using good servers. So these are certain things which actually help us deal with that challenge, actually. You're on mute, Sandeep.
Sorry, yeah. Monrabi or Achep, do you want to add and discuss about how do you ensure safety? Perhaps Monrabi, and then we go to Achep.
Yes, for sure. Most important issue. And when we think about safety, we need to be thoughtful and consider in our approach, right, to safety. Balancing like freedom of expression with people absolute need to feel safe online. Freedom of expression is our like Twitter value, core value as a company, but we must balance the right with others, such as person right to physical security or privacy. There are hundreds of millions of tweets shared every day. And this kind of volume and reach, it can be challenging to strike the right balance between protecting freedom of expression and keeping people safe. It's like sliding scale between tackling safety and being accused of censorship, but we are entirely committed to striking that balance despite the intrinsic challenges. We increasingly focus on technology to help us achieve this balance, because we want to ensure that everything that Twitter do is to protect people who use Twitter, but we also deeply concerned about enforcement overreach. So regulatory or has a potential to stifle the creativity, in ingenuity, and fundamental potential of free and open internet for a public discourse. To give you an example, we have one set of rules for hundreds of millions of people who use Twitter, and the hundreds of millions of tweets sent every day. But to make Twitter safe, our rule has to incorporate the latest trend in online behavior, to understand the different cultural, social, and context, to help set expectation of what is allowed or not allowed on the platform. So we work with the online safety expert who reside on our Trust and Safety Council for guidance and feedback on how to best present our policy on the world, because the company is dedicated on the safety and want to make the platform to be a safer place. Thank you.
Yeah, perhaps Achep, as a content creator, how do you think about safety, and what safeguards do you put in place for safety, your safety?
Yeah, so as a content creator who is talking about this, sexual health issue, it's really sometimes really complicated, because when I talk about like contraception, like condom, people will be saying, "Oh my God, you are campaigning free sex or something like that." And some people always say like it's really contrast or against Indonesian culture and something like that. But I also concerned about my safety. and by doing consultations to my professional colleague, such as the lawyer, because I have some connection from a lawyer from the cyber institution who more understand about it. And sometimes I also ask them advice with which one the content should I what is it should I upload, and this is will be saved or not. So yeah, so far I am just doing the consultations. Yeah.
Thank you for the wonderful answers. Indeed, safety should be a concern, and all interventions, including content creation, should be safeguarded, and so that more people can create and share and express. And I really love the idea of striking the balance between, and that's what Twitter is doing. Um, I don't see we have other questions, so audiences, please do ask more questions. But as we wait for more questions, I have another question for our wonderful panelists. The question is about really community engagement and how, from Purvi's and from Monravi's and Achap's presentation, throughout it, we saw that really the power in digital intervention lies in the community creating the contents and the community feedback, and it's really that's the power of digital. Addresses and dismantles the shame, fear, the stigma, but also provides direct feedback into programs to ensure. We always talk about person-centered care, but this is how you do it, and that's really, I think, an important topic to talk more about. So I would start with Monravi and then Achep and then Purvi could end this discussion maybe on the importance and on the use of digital media for community engagement.
Yes, Twitter is what is happening. And the power of Twitter is we are fast, we are public, and we are conversational. And right now, there are a lot of women, LGBTQIA+, and vulnerable groups around the world that has been able to express themselves, shed light on important issue, and join a community of allies on Twitter. We are proud of it. They have made the service our service, their microphone shift the culture and then change the world. Example can be a Me Too movement that is a global phenomenon, or same-sex marriage that is because of the word by generation of 100 of years, and to raise awareness. And it's something that we are proud to be a part of. And our work on this is all committing to provide a safe environment, particular for someone over 13 years old, and to include the rules against abuse, improve technology to implement those rules, and investment in NGO who work on safety and kindness, right? That Ashik was mentioning about the kindness, and also young people around the world that use Twitter. Our work is when we work with the youth group, we work on media literacy. How can we provide a training to reach out to the group to understand what are the safety tools, what are the power of Twitter that they can implement, and also to understand about the safety and security tools, and the safety tools, how can they control their experience online, is something that is very important. Thank you.
Perhaps Achep, you could comment a bit on, your talk was mostly about it, but maybe address on how exactly can digital technologies dismantle and share your voice and amplify, create a kind of movement for change?
Yes, I think it's called Cerita Netizen, or People Story, and I think this program is powerful also. But of course, before they send their story to me, I have to read it all first, and I try to edit it and try to a little bit to censor something that I cannot to show it publicly. And for me, their story is really big deal to make the people, like aware that social issue is not simple. Social issue is a really complex, and we have to more wise to see it. So that's why I'm hoping through the stories people would be more understanding and more doing kindness. So yeah.
Thank you, Ajab. That was a really inspiring answer. Purvi, could you talk more about how technologies can be leveraged for engagement, partnership, and leadership of communities in our intervention?
Yeah, I think communities, because we're working with and their engagement for content development, but for consult them to understand their needs, their preferences. Because if we design a program which doesn't really, fill in the gaps that exist in the program, then the community is not going to be accepting our program. It's not going to be really affecting the numbers that we see. And so I think community involvement starts right from there. And online programs, of course, depend upon online content. And so content that we see, we need to take a lot of feedback from the community to understand if they would like this kind of a content. We've had experiences in the past where we hired creative agencies who created content for us. But when we advertised them online and when it reached the community and we took some feedback from them, we had some very bad feedback saying that, we are not like this. We don't want to look at this. We wanted to be more we wanted to be more mainstreamed. Why are you putting us in this box? And which I thought was, made really a lot of sense. We don't really need to put them in a box saying, this is the kind of content that a gay guy would like to see, or this is the kind of content that a sex worker would want to see. Why should I have that kind of content? It should be mainstreamed. It should be what everybody would like to see, probably. But it should have a good call to action. That's the most important thing. So I think community involvement, their feedback, and what they need is very important for digital content. And I think that should be the kind of criteria that we should be following. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the answer. Do we have questions from the audience? I have a last question if you don't have questions from the audience. My last questions, as we wait, perhaps we have questions from the audience. My last question would be about really about financing online interventions. We know, for instance, when you talk about online interventions, governments tend to not buy in until you get really good evidence. And how do we take ownership and finance these online interventions? Like Achap's work, how do you finance yourself, and how do you support? Do you do this voluntarily, or are you financed? Is this an income source, or things like that? Financing these online interventions is a question on its own, and ensuring the exit and sustainability of these online interventions. So I would like perhaps maybe Juan Ravi could talk about it, but in a bit about financing through philanthropy, perhaps, and then we move on to Achap, and then again, last I will give it to Purvi to answer about financing these online interventions. Juan Ravi,
Okay, sorry. So I think when you say like financing, there are a lot of things that we have to talk about, because social media, right? The business model is based on advertisement, and I think the advertisement also is on what topic. If it's like Twitter bans political ads, and then we think reach should be earned, not to be bought. And I think it's a different policy with social media companies. But if you think about in terms of philanthropic work, and this is something that we are working on. We have the advertising like ads. We call it ads for good. We provide advertising credit to NGO that register, and that they can use this advertising credit to promote and amplify the work that they're doing, and especially on the 5 main pillars that I mentioned about, like freedom of expression, internet safety, equality, and blah blah blah. And so for me, I think it's so important because only a little bit of ads, they can reach out to a lot of more people. They can also amplify the voice that they want to advocate, right? So I think it's such a powerful tool. It can be very beneficial. And most of the, like for example, this event as well. I mean, we want to be able to share good stories. We want to share inspiring story, like what I said, mentioned, like sharing is so inspiring. And I think these are just an example of like the power of financing like online invitation. Another example is during the COVID-19. You have a lot of information, a lot of overload, and how can we surface the right and credible, reliable information? Some of these ads for good were credited to some of the NGO and government agency, and for them to surface the right information for people to follow, because it's so important and it's so relevant to everyone. So I think it depends on the purpose and how you are using it. And it's also very specific on point by point. It can be good, and it can have a disadvantages as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps Achep, you can talk about, because what you said looked like a lot of work, from like helping clients and making content and engaging and doing surveys, YouTube videos. How do you finance it? How is it financed?
So actually, I'm doing that kind of the stuff. It's voluntarily. So, but sometimes I also, like got the opportunity to get paid partnership with some organizations to make a campaign or something, and also I also got revenue from the ads from the YouTube, my YouTube channel. But talking about my main work now, I'm just running a small business in my hometown. So yeah.
So really, what your work is completely voluntarily, right? And that shows. I mean, that shows one how powerful some digital person, a content creator, can be, but also how much support and potential it is if it is well resourced and supported. I think that is a really important, and that's my personal advocacy to people who try to view it. Purvi, what are your thoughts on this issue on financing and ensuring sustainability?
Sustainability should be the most important goal that everyone should have. And I think once such an initiative is started by a project, and then the goal would be to hand over to a government body, it's always challenging, because government always thinks of how are we going to really sustain this? And when it comes to online advertisements, the first thought that comes to their mind is, oh, it's too expensive. It's going to be very expensive. First of all, content creation, and then advertising it, buying space, buying ads is going to be really expensive. We have been trying to advocate with the government that, advertisements is not that much of a problem, because there are a lot of platforms, there are a lot of spaces that are available for free, especially for not-for-profit organizations, for programs in the development sector. So like Grindr gives free banner ads, Twitter does. And, we have Google Ads, which gives like $10,000 worth ad space to an organization that registers with them. So there are a lot of ways of getting through that barrier, and it's not that much of a problem. More so, the issue I feel in terms of financing is the devices and the human resource, the trained human resource that we would need for online outreach or linking people to services. I think that is something that we also need to consider, because advertisements is something through which we'll be able to reach out to people. But what is also important is to link people to services. And that requires systems, that would require devices to talk to people or to link people to services. And these are some things that we need to consider while we are budgeting or planning an intervention. So we as FHI are undertaking a costing exercise, which would exactly tell us what would be an approximate cost of starting an online intervention in any country? What would be the one-time costs? What would be some of the recurring costs that we might have every year? And how do you really end up sustaining such an intervention? And so I think that exercise would give us a lot of these answers, and maybe give us ways to go forward, and would advise organizations who wish to initiate this kind of an initiative as to what should be the budget, what should be the kind of advocacy that they would need to do with the government or any other stakeholders who are ready to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, wonderful panelists, for answering those 3 questions. I open the session again. Oh, yes. So I guess there are no questions. So we're going to have a closing statement. I would ask each panelist to say one sentence or a pitch on what is the importance of and the goal of digital spaces and intervention in digital spaces. But before that, I would like to thank the 3 panelists for their wonderful presentation, and how the digital world can be further explored, but through content creation, through tools from different parts of the cascade, through designing services, and all these different aspects in which we can use digital platforms to enhance and catalyze our interventions and further promote and empower communities. So thank you all for this very amazing, and we should have more conversations, because what I see is what is needed is more evidence, more resource support. We need to make a costed argument. What is the benefit of this intervention? Like a costed argument. So I thank these wonderful panelists for what you have given. I would like each one of you to have one closing pitch for the viewers on why digital technologies can really empower and advance communities. We'll start with Monravi, and then we'll go to Purvi, and I will give the last stage to Ajab to really inspire us further and close the session. Thank you. Perhaps Monravi, you can start first.
Yes, we're living in a digital era, and as working at Twitter, is a company that I'm really proud, because Twitter is committed to use the power of the social media like Twitter to strengthen communities and support equality and universal acceptance for all people. And throughout 2020 and beyond, we have and will continue to support equality and key population partners, and to work to ensure to surface the public conversation to be healthy, open, and safe. So thank you so much.
Purvi, your message.
Thank you. Yes, so digital online interventions are tomorrow. It's the thing that we need to enter into if we have to actually reach our targets, if we want to actually, near ending this epidemic. And so, 3 things that I would like to quickly mention. One is that online interventions allow us to reach a very broad population. It also includes people who are not out in the open talking about their key population status or about their positivity. And so it's important to reach to that broad population, because they do need services. The second thing that I would like to mention is that it's important to have a differentiated service delivery package for people online, because everybody has a different need. Everybody might not be ready to come to a facility that you choose for them. So please, whenever we plan it, it's important to have differentiated service delivery for them. And the third is that online world is huge. It's like lakhs and millions of people use the online world on a day-to-day basis. But everybody might not be interested in our messages. Everybody might not be our target audience. And so to use the available resources more efficiently, it is important to target the audience very well. And so if you're using advertising, it's a very good way of doing it, but please target your population well so that you're using your resources well as well. So I would like to end with this, and thank you very much for giving your time and listening to us.
Thank you, Purvi. Let's give the last message to Achep before we close. Achep, the floor is yours.
Okay, so yeah, for me, digital area is a great place to connect each other, to care also each other, to share each other without sometimes without meeting in persons, but we can make a great change by also sharing your stories, and because your stories matter, and especially for the young key population. And I hope this digital area could be, you could find your family, especially in this COVID area, where the young key population maybe cannot meet the people they want to meet, and we can connect through social media or a digital platform. So yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for the great presentation from the speaker here, and thank you so much, Kasandi, for the moderator. Also, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your presentation. It was an amazing discussion, and with this, I hand over the session back to the colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.